And away we go. It is the nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken right here on BearcatJournal.com, www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Download the app for Android, iPhone, everything Galactic. Go to the app. They will bring it right to your front door, pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop, or head down to Dayton, Kentucky, Wednesday through Sunday. Tell them to pump it up. We'll save you 15% off of the delicious Galactic goodness. All right, Aaron. Kind of a big day. A day that a lot of people have been on pins and needles waiting for a long time. Us for one very specific reason that we got an answer to, which was nice. But we got talking about talking. We'll get to that in a little bit. Scott Satterfield press conference today. And then, but first, basketball schedule has arrived, Aaron. It is upon us. We now know what things look like.
Yes.
Here we go. There you can see November, Georgia Tech being one of the main highlights. NKU, a little bit of a revenge game at Fifth Third Arena. I know everybody is upset about the second and third games. We will get into that probably tomorrow night, Dave and I, unless you want to touch on it now.
Sure don't.
I get why people are upset. I'll just say, from what I know, they really thought the atmosphere at the NIT game was a cool one. And they thought this could be a way to open up some of those seats for fans that don't normally sit in the lower bowl and give them an opportunity early in the season to take in a game. I think it probably could have been communicated a little bit better what was happening, but sometimes that happens. But yeah, so there's the first month. Florida Gulf Coast kick off December, then the shootout. Dayton down at Heritage Bank Center in the NIL neutral site game. Merrimack Stetson Evansville, that closes out the non-conference slate. Is it Murderers Row? No. Year one in the Big 12, they're playing 21 high major games. Like, if you think they should have added one more high major game, okay. Like, you win, okay. I don't like the hay is going to be in the barn on how this team does in the Big 12. So, I don't know. I know people are very worked up about it, but I think it all generally handles itself in the wash. If they're good enough to make the tournament, they're good enough to make the tournament. If you're a team playing for a protected seed, or you're playing for, you think you're going to be a top 15 team in the country, then yeah, you probably need a little bit more aggressive non-conference. If you're a team playing in a high major league for the first time in a dozen years, and you haven't made a tournament 3 years, and you probably need to get some wins, you
I'm
make
not
decisions
mad about
accordingly.
I'm not mad about anything, especially when we still don't even know about the roster and where the roster is going to be standing.
Right.
So I'm totally fine with give me all the cupcakes in the non-conference. I'm so
Why
good
does
with
everybody
this schedule.
hate cupcakes? Cupcakes are
I don't
delicious.
know. I'm so
I
good
love
with this
cupcakes.
schedule. Like, let's get our feet wet. Like, just dip the toes in before you just go balls to the wall on your non-conference scheduling, knowing that you have I don't think it's even arguable at this point. I think you inarguably have the best conference in college basketball.
Yeah. I mean, these things are always cyclical, but based on what we've seen the last couple of seasons and based on what we think we know going into this one, it's the toughest conference in America, and it is getting stronger.
Right.
Cincinnati and Houston and BYU are coming in now. Arizona, and it's getting more challenging, not less challenging. So yeah, Colorado's had a good basketball program. Like, they haven't been great, but they've been solid. So yeah. Let's get to the nonsense. Whew. Open with BYU. Nothing like a good old 10 p.m. game in Provo on a Saturday night before having to come home and open with Texas on a Tuesday.
Well, the football schedule, the Big 12 did us plenty of favors. You can't imagine they're going to give us all of the favors in the basketball schedule as well.
Well, there's no favors you can get in basketball.
Not really. I mean, either way, you're going to have to bounce back and forth in time zones, and that's that.
And you're going to have to play top 25 teams a lot. Yeah. A lot. So that Texas game is going to be brutal. Baylor on a Saturday night is going to be rough. TCU should be good. Oklahoma is expected to be down a little bit. Then we get
I hope Cincinnati's good enough that both the Texas game and the Oklahoma game get flexed out of ESPN Plus and onto an actual.
It's not happening here. Don't just take it out of your mind. Take it out of your mind. There's not enough. There's not enough channels for the amount of inventory.
If they're good enough, just you wait.
Okay. You want to bet? You want to place a friendly wager?
I'm poor.
Yeah. And then big Monday, first trip to the Fog. The BCJ crew will be there. Then you get UCF at home. You get the Morgantown Lubbock two-step. They did that on purpose. They watched this show. It's hard. You ever go from Morgantown to Lubbock? It's hard. It's hard, Aaron. It's hard.
That's what I hear. Of course, that guy might not have known if he was in Lubbock or in West Virginia. So
he could have been in Houston for all
just
I know. Then you get Houston, Iowa State, UCF, Oklahoma State, TCU, Houston again. Hey, look, Kansas State. They get Oklahoma, West Virginia, and then the Big 12 Conference Tournament. Like, I do think it could have been more difficult. Like, I don't feel like there's really that stretch of, like, 2 weeks where you're like, oh, boy, that's a 4-game losing streak. Like, you know what I mean? There could be a 4-game losing streak anywhere in there.
I was going to say, I think anywhere on the schedule once you start conference play.
But, I mean, I don't think you're looking at, like, okay, you've got Kansas, Texas, Houston, and Kansas State all in like a small window. Now you do have that stretch, if you scroll up just a little bit, like one thing, where you go, and I think Oklahoma State will be pretty good. But you go Houston, Iowa State, UCF, Oklahoma State, TCU, Houston, and then Kansas State. Like that's February's going to be rough.
February makes or breaks your season, really.
Right. So yeah. All right, real quick, let's get to there's the basketball schedule. I'm sure Dave and I will go in depth on that tomorrow as well. But let's get to talking about talking. What do you got?
So Satterfield again touched on the environment. If you have not heard, if you are Luke Fickell living under a rock, this was an electric atmosphere to be at for a game. If you watched it on TV, you got that same sentiment. If you were there, you felt it. Even if you were in the press box where you aren't being hit in the face with open sound, you still felt it. he recognizes they need to score. It's not really a secret. He watched the tape, he sees it, he knows it. Like, people who are saying that he doesn't care about winning games, get out of here. People are saying that he's not calling good plays, which we'll get to that later. He knows that they're not scoring. He knows that needs to be fixed. I thought it was interesting that he did play BYU's quarterback last year when he was at Pitt.
Yeah.
He mentioned that he anticipates BYU trying to get their run game going this week. He also thinks that this defense, Cincinnati's defense, is turning the ball over well, and did give a little bit of a hat tip to Brian Brown, as they are working on it every week in practice, just different turnover drills in practice. Deshaun Pace is showing focus this week that was lacking after the Miami game. Sounds like it's a 100% certainty that he's going to be back this week. As far as the play calling goes, we've talked about it all weekend. We've talked about it last night on the BBP, but guys are running wide open. Coach Satterfield said, when you're watching the tape, guys are running wide open. Emory's just not able to get to those progressions as he's in the pocket. The plays are working, and you're not hitting on them because of the time that Emory has in the pocket before he's running or forcing a ball. And again, when you are, as fans, calling for the head of the play caller, and you have not gone back to the tape to actually see that guys are running open, the play calling is working because it's schemed guys running free, wide open. It kind of goes back to just the offense is not gelling the way that we want it to. And it starts with the offensive line, as I've repeatedly said since this game ended this weekend, which then gets to the quarterback. And if the quarterback is not making the right reads and not going through his progressions, then that's where you run into unnecessary turnovers, where you run into being hurried 31 times, where you run into balls being thrown poorly in general. Like, it's just when all of these pieces aren't working together, the machine malfunctions.
Right. Like, we what, a couple of years we talked about pieces and parts, and the one of the analogy, like I love analogies.
A car. I think you made a car analogy.
Yeah, lots of car analogies. It's like the check engine light is on, and we're trying to figure out, like, you never know why the check engine light is on specifically. There could be 4 reasons why the check engine light is on. It's not very specific, and that's kind of where this offense is at, because it's a culmination of a couple things that just has it misfiring just enough. Like, it'll get you from point A to like 3/4 of the way to point B, and then it stalls. And sometimes it could be the carburetor, and sometimes it could be the battery, and sometimes it could be the engine. And like, that's kind of where I think this thing is at right now, is like, once they finish getting this thing tuned, it should be able to get all the way to point B instead of point A and a half.
But
A
again,
and 3/4.
It starts with the offensive line, and if the offensive line isn't executing as they've all talked about, Emory talked about it, Satterfield talked about it, then the rest of the things can't work as they need to. So the offensive line's got to get it figured out.
Yeah, and I look, I'm not. You can't absolve Emory either. He's got to be better.
I agree, but that's the second part in this whole process.
Right. Once the offensive line is better, then Emory can work on being a little better, and then the receivers can be a little bit more consistent, because they know Emory's going to have 2.5, 3 seconds to take the snap, read the defense, and make the throw.
if the line is playing better, that affects both Emery and whichever of this four-headed monster is in at running back. So there's two pieces that affects.
Well, but that's the crazy. The line has been good in the run game. Like they've been good in the run game.
Well, this week wasn't great.
Like they had a bad 140-yard day. Like if that's a bad day, I'll take it.
I agree. I'll give you that.
Well, it's what I said last night. Like
we got spoiled in the first 3 weeks.
Well, early they struggled. Early they could not run the ball. But as that game went on, they did a better job of moving the ball on the ground.
Yeah. He did mention that they were going to be rotating the D line more and kind of slapped himself on the wrist, I guess, for saying that they should have been doing that against Miami. And maybe
that said O-line. That was O-line.
I thought that was D-line.
No, O-line.
I wrote D-line.
Because he talked about they ran 91 plays on offense. And
he did mention that
they could have done more bringing Radosevic and Wilder in to give guys a series off. That was about the O-line. And then he did say, and the defensive line, we want to,
maybe that's where I got confused. And then he also said, essentially, you're going to continue to see more blitzing by opponents until this offensive line shows that they can stop it. And right now, there's no reason to believe that blitzing is going to slow anytime soon.
And that was in specific. I asked him about teams attacking right up
the gaps,
the A and B gaps. And once that's on tape, the only way you can make it stop is to put on tape that you can slow it down, because teams will see that and they say, oh, okay, well, they've got 5. We'll bring one extra guy right in between their guard and their center or right over top. And they haven't shown that they can stop that. And until they do, that's what we're going to do. So, yeah, I mean, I think you have to take a look and learn. Again, adjusting to the adjustments. Teams have watched the tape and figured out if we come aggressively at the point of attack and blitz those gaps, they don't have enough. Like we talked about last night, I think they're trying to make sure they're protecting the tackles.
Mm-hmm.
And teams are saying, okay, then we're coming right up the gut. Now they're going to have to tighten it up, which is going to leave your tackles on the island a little bit more. And unless you counter that, they can hold up.
Unless you counter that with some tight end play potentially, but yeah, I agree.
Well, but I mean, just in general, like if that's what you're like, okay, we're going to have to pay attention more and focus more on making sure we're ready for stunts and delayed blitzes and stuff right at the point of attack. You're going to have to leave your tackles on an island a little bit more. That's again, adjustment, like back and forth. That's the tennis match that is a season.
Daniel Greshik also spoke today. I didn't have a ton on what he had to say. He did mention that elevation is a problem. He did also mention a former teammate is playing for BYU. He played BYU.
He was at Utah State, so yeah,
right.
He's familiar.
He played BYU last year, and he's excited because he's going to actually have family at the game, which as a West Coast guy, that's always exciting for guys who are able to get family. Yep.
Very cool.
And then Emery spoke, it looks like after practice. He again continues to say it's all about execution, both for him and the rest of the offense. He said that there were a couple plays where if he could have them back, he thinks that they're 4-0. And it sounds like he still clearly trusts Scott Satterfield and just continues to appreciate the fact that he is an aggressive play caller and kind of allows him to do his thing. He also said that he's not gotten away from what he said his goal was this season, which is just to have fun out there and get back to playing football like he did as a kid. And I think that that's a good mentality to have when you're looking at going from 2-0 to 2-2.
Right. All right. Gavin Gerhardt will be up. That's uploading now. That'll be up here shortly on the YouTube page. George in the Jungle tonight, So check that out as well. And we will see you tomorrow night. Aaron will see you tonight for George.
Yep.
I'll see you tomorrow for the BCJ pod, and we'll take a look at the week that's coming ahead in the Big 12 on this show. Plenty more, and all culminating Friday night, 10:30. Bearcats and BYU. That's a nightcap brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken. Right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See it.